When authors do battle, they do it with words. They throw a story back and forth, each trying to write the other into a corner. The results can be terrifying, or they can be legendary. The challenger, representing the villain this week, is...
I am Giovanni Rusano, author of The House That Smelled Like Urine, Meet the Mosleys, and the upcoming novel Goblin, and other shit you can find at www.runninghorse.com.
And the defender, representing the hero, is...
Dave Higgins. The muscles of my mind will smash, Giovanni, like cordwood before a barbarian's thumb.
Defender, choose your genre.
The genre is swords and sorcery.
Challenger, choose the hero.
Elmorn Fletcher, 32 years of age, a local baker from the small village of Gorfendorp, just east of the great and ancient city, Falfalafalo. This meager man of low income and ill mind does his best to make his way through life with the very little he has. His father taught him how to bake bread as a child, and it has been the lifeblood of his existence ever since. He spends his days almost completely alone inside of his tiny corner bakery, his life too close to empty. His family was ravished by a great plague put upon the land by a not-so-great wizard. If it wasn't for the daily visits from Elmorn's lifelong chum, the great warrior, Whorehand Swordhand, he'd have naught but the type of silent solitude that would drive a man insane.
Defender, choose the time period.
The end of the first age of humanity. A time of mighty thewed heroes and spitfire princesses, of great treasures and greater infamies. A time of short summers and long winters. The wind howls hard across the steppe, matched only by the lamentation of women and the pounding horses of barbarian tribes. In deep caves and high towers, men worship ancient gods with twisted rites. Ice has already swallowed far Volusia and Hyperborea, and looms long like a wizard's shadow over Falfalafello.
Challenger, choose the villain.
Mankar Strongbottom. His age is of no concern to you. Born in a place beyond the darkness, this vile beast walks the land as a man of murderous machinations and devious devices. His powers are unparalleled in this world and beyond, but he's not one to use them. He prefers the tools of mortal fools to do the work for him. Warm, wet red is like an intoxicant to this Mega Man. The feeling of metal in his hand, ripping through flesh and bone, the ensuing spill of entrails, a life incomplete left without. Mankar Strongbottom could easily enslave all of mankind if he saw fit, but his tastes are for much finer things. It's the subtle serenity found amongst a world built on chaos that brings him pleasure most.
Defender, what special skill does the hero have?
Elmorn Fletcher's parents were both distant descendants of the beast lords of distant Hath-Corda, their lineage lost to the mists of time, and their blood as weak as a sorcerer's promise. They lived out their lives unknowing. Mocked and beaten as a child of his kindness to small animals, Elmorn too is unknowing of his birthright. But the power to command all beasts that run and swim and fly lurks within him, waiting, like the horse tribes, to rise up again.
Challenger, what's happening at the start of our story?
Elmorn works his dough as usual. The sounds of life make their way from outside in, intruding upon his solitude, filling his empty existence with bitter reminders of a life he'll never have. The dough squishes through his fingers as he thinks of his wife and kids, if only he'd had the time to make them. Little Elmorn runs past his feet, chasing after a stray ball. Claire, his wife, chases the boy, laughing. It's warm and bright and the floors are swept. No, they are not. The moldy hunks of old bread on the floor snap him back, and his fantasy family fades into the nothing. If only life were as simple as baking. He'd mix the ingredients, work them until they were right, and in the oven they would go. If only. A tear tries to force its way through a duct, but has no chance. Elmorn has been eating his pain for a long time, and he'll be damned if he'll let it break him now. Just before the suns drop below the horizon, bringing morning off to the far land of Ophelia, the front door of Elmorn's bakery flies open. With a freshly gutted goat slung over his shoulder, and a mighty blade dangling from his side, the renowned and mighty warrior, Horhand Swarthand, enters the small and crumbling building. It's going to be more than just bread for dinner tonight, old chum, Horhand proudly proclaims. His giant nostrils flare as he takes in the intoxicating aroma of freshly baking bread. This smell never ceases to bring a rise to my monster. As long as you keep your monsters sheltered, we will be fine, Elmorn jokes to his friend. Unless you bake me a beauty with flowing locks and breasts the size of my head, I think it not a problem. They laugh together as Horhand drops the goat onto a butchering table. Near an hour later, the two lifelong friends are feasting on warm bread and fresh meat, while, unbeknownst to them, a third sits watching. Miles away from the village of Gorfendorp, well beyond the great and ancient city, Falfalafalo, Mankar Strongbottom sits in a plush chair in his lavishly decorated lair, stroking an unnecessarily long chin beard. Before him is a ball of crystal. Inside of the ball are the images of Elmorn and Horhand feasting on goat. The fire roars behind Mankar as he thinks of all the fun he will soon be having. For no reason other than self-gratification, the man who's not quite a man lets out a long and repetitious laugh that would be reminiscent of a mechanical being, if in fact such beings existed in his world for the association to be made.
Their meal finished, Horhand Swordhand slaps Elmorn hard between the shoulders, nearly knocking him into the fireplace. That was a fine loaf, my friend, a proud crust, wreathed in seeds as if a princess of its kind, and just as pliant neath my hand. Elmorn straightens slowly. Is ravishing all you think on? No, old friend, I had no such thoughts about the goat, or anything else that falls beneath my blade. Not even Carla Blackspire? 'Tis true I would have left my sword sheathed for her, but she was insistent. He grins the wide white grin of a man unafraid of life. Her jewels consoled me, though. At least I have ravishing to think on. You're my brother, Elmorn, but baking is no life for a real man. Elmorn sighs. He had wondered how long it would take Horhand to tire of civilization. Every time he returned, he claimed he was staying for months, but after a few days he would start gazing at the horizon again, and then he would announce he was off to wrestle pirates for their gold, or steal the teeth of gods, and every time he would ask Elmorn to go with him. And adventures are no life at all if you haven't been blessed with muscle in place of brains, Hor. You do yourself wrong, brother. You might have earned them honestly kneading bread, but your arms are easily the match for all the headsman's sons put together. Elmorn snorted. That's as maybe, but why would I be fighting them in the first place? Because, replied Horhand, teeth flashing like polished ivory, it was their goat. Elmorn sprays ale across the remains of the carcass. But fortunately, they also had 2 horses. And I met a traveller this morning who sold me this map of the marshes of Tunvig that shows a path to the centre. Coming? The sound of furious hammering on the door makes up Elmorn's mind. Grabbing his meagre savings from under the hearthstone, he follows Horhand out of the window.
Mr. Fletcher, let us in, shouts Irvis, the headman's eldest son, while pounding some more on the door. We know Horhand is in there. We don't want any trouble with you. We just want him. And the goat, Boothheed, the headman's youngest son, reminds his brother. I'm almost certain they've killed the goat, chimes a third brother, whom their father was too lazy to name. How do you know this? Boothheed asks, with rising panic in his voice. Can you not smell her roasted flesh in the air? Number 3 asks. Boothheed sniffs the air and drops to his knees in horror, screaming the goat's name. Lola! Elmorn and Horhand watch the headman's sons from the side of the house, and when their moment comes, they abscond safely into the night. Once a safe enough distance away, the two stop to catch their breaths and have a few swigs of strong stuff from the ornate bottle Horhand always keeps with him. I'm so glad you've decided to come, brother. We are going to have a grand adventure indeed. The great warrior slaps a massive hand onto his thin but somewhat muscular best friend's backside. It's not like you gave me much of a choice here, Hor. Elmorn decides to take a seat on a mossy rock and roll a few smokes while he has the chance. Mankar still watches through his cloudy ball of crystal, still stroking his pointlessly long but exquisitely pointed chin beard. Footsteps creep behind him. A small man in a hooded gown with an unusually strong back approaches. He carries in his hands a tray with a bottle of brown liquor and 2 glasses. After placing the tray onto a table next to Mankar, the small framed manservant pours a few fingers' worth for each of them. Thank you, Julius, Mankar says to his servant. We shall drink in the name of the great and secret game. To the game, my lord, Julius says as he raises his glass high. To the game, my dear Julius. They drink and enjoy a moment of silence while watching Elmorn and Horhand venture through dense forest. How long until they reach the center of the marshes, my lord? Julius asks, for some reason afraid of his own question. 1 night and 2 days should be all it takes. This is the great Horhand Swordhand, after all. He'll get the baker to us no matter how hard we try to stop him. A small chuckle escapes Mankar. My lord, are we ready to make our first move? Indeed, my boy, indeed. What shall it be then? Should we send in the 8th toad Slothicus of Garbleshaw? Or will it be the 3-headed gnome from the Mystic Garden? Julius pauses for thought and returns with much excitement. Oh, what about the horned horses? We could send a few of... Mankar interrupts his servant, smiling. Dear sweet, stupid Julius, he reaches out and rubs the top of the small man's head. Slowly, with as soft of a touch as he can. The feeling of Julius's fuzzy head always takes a moment from him. We don't want to give it our all right away. Just like a fine woman or wine, we must savor our first sip. Mankar thinks for a moment. Send them Higgins the Goblin. He should be easy enough to beat. The two laugh like madmen as the moon watches with curiosity.
Finally returning the bottle to his pack, Horhand leaps to his feet and begins to stride into the darkness. Just as Elmorn is beginning to believe he intends to walk to the marshes, 2 cart horses loom up out of the darkness. Horhand has, for once, actually planned ahead. With the buzz of Horhand's liquor filling his body, Elmorn spares no thought for his lack of riding experience and leaps onto the nearest horse. Despite the lack of saddle and reins, the beast remains stable, even when Horhand incites him to try more than a lumber. After a few hours, they finally stop to camp. Elmorn attempts to leap off as gracefully as he mounted, but no amount of secret beast lore defends a man against inexperience. His legs feel like jelly and he falls slowly sideways. Maybe we should have saved some of the liniment to rub on instead of drinking it, Horhand chuckles. Reaching down, he lifts Elmorn to his feet with but a flick of his mighty thews. Rest against this rock, old friend, while I get the fire going. Elmorn feels sensation slowly creeping back up his legs, then wishes it wasn't, as more tender areas become evident. Sharing a roll-up with Hor, he begins to wonder if it would have been less painful just to let the headsman's sons take out their rage on him. At least he wouldn't have to go through it again tomorrow. With the pain abating and a warm snack inside him, Elmorn starts to doze, only to be awakened by an odd warbling noise approaching from the darkness. Horhand snores raucously beside him and does not respond to his shakes. Still trying to convince his legs to take the weight, Elmorn watches with horror as a short, ugly creature, clutching a crude axe, stumbles into the clearing. Its hair sticks out of a pallid scalp like weeds on a midden, and its limbs are of clearly different lengths, giving it a rolling gait. Elmorn draws his eating knife, then dives sideways hastily as the axe, held in the creature's longer arm, whistles over the fire. Rolling desperately, the strength of his arms thankfully balancing the weakness of his legs, he manages to keep on the far side of the fire from the goblin. But that is all. His knife is much too short to even threaten the creature's fingers, let alone do real damage. Inspiration strikes. The goblin has not jumped across the fire. Elmorn grabs a burning branch and swings it like a club. The creature jumps backwards and, stumbling on a rock, falls onto Horhand. The hero's left hand grabs out and twists. "Not now, Carla," he mumbles in his sleep before dropping the dead goblin. Crawling back to his friend, Elmorn pokes his boot with a branch until he awakens. Horhand glances at the corpse before slamming a meaty palm onto Elmorn's back. "Killed a goblin, and with your bare hands. I knew you had it in you. Did I ever tell you about the time I saved Atlak from the goblin horde?" The goblins used to be a peaceable people, but the Hieronac of Atlak mispronounced their ambassador's name. He was called Hiesis, but the Hieronac called him Higgins, which sounds like a word for exquisite beauty in Goblin. The ambassador thought he was being mocked and declared war. Does that sort of mistake happen often? Hardly. Only a weak-minded fool would make that sort of stupid mistake. Well, we're both up. We might as well get a start on the day. "Weak-minded fool!" curses Mankar, glaring at the globe. "Julius, bring me a goblet of brandy."
It is a shame about Higgins, though. He was always loyal. Julius reaches for the bottle of brandy on a shelf that's just a little too high for him. It seems as though he's not going to be able to pull off the task to Mankar, who watches mildly amused, but to his slight disappointment, the short, straight-backed man manages to pull it off. Mankar clears his throat, and a sly smile lingers. "He wasn't as loyal as you think, Julius. Of course I expected him to fail. This was no sacrifice made for the sake of the game. This was no sacrifice at all. Higgins was no more than an ugly growth in our union. He won't be heard of again. His defeat was far from legendary. The devious being of unparalleled and uncounted powers emits his repetitious cackle as Julius remains lost in his master's mention of our union. He's never felt more included in the great and secret show that goes on around him. He feels like a stagehand in the play of life. Perhaps one day he might even become a director." Not more than a few miles from the place where two lifelong friends defeated a hideous goblin, with a bit more than a little luck, the sun has risen and shines bright upon their faces. "Brother, I honestly am proud of you. You really took care of yourself back there," Horhand proclaims as they ride along. He wishes he was close enough to pat his friend on the back, but instead settles on pumping his fist in the air while letting out a series of hoots and hollers. "Again, honestly, it was a little more you than me," Elmorn says, with something other than modesty. "Crunkins, I tell you! That is absolute were-duckin' horse lore. You would have finished him off either way." Horhand realizes the harshness of his words and immediately regrets them. "El, I am sorry. I do not know what came over me. Could you ever forgive such an insult? I honestly didn't. I was trying." Elmorn saves his friend from rambling. "It is no worry, Hor. I know you meant well. You've always had faith in me, but perhaps that's always been your downfall. What in the name of Nur are you saying? Horhand knows what he's saying, but doesn't want to look this particular foe in the eye. You could have been the greatest, Elmorn shouts. You could have been a king, but you always had to carry me along. If it wasn't for me being such a complete and total failure, you would have long ago left this land and never come back. It is not your failures that keep me coming back, my brother. It is my own. Horhand looks down at his horse. It is not what you think it is out there. What do you mean? Elmorn asks, confused. It's not quite the life of adventure that one would imagine. It is lonely and cruel out there, Elmorn. My family has been long gone, and you and your family made me one of your own. I have nobody else in this world left. He thinks on the weight of his words for a moment. Besides, if I were to have been a king, they would have assassinated me before I even hit the throne. This world is just not ready for my greatness. The warrior flexes his bicep and kisses it. The two friends break out in laughter, just as Horhand's horse takes a terrible tumble. Elmorn stops his own steed and leaps off with instinctual precision. Horhand, are you all right? Horhand writhes in pain alongside his no longer moving horse. The once magnificent beast snapped its mighty neck as they fell. My leg, he screams while trying to sit. I think I have broken my leg. He falls back to the ground as Elmorn reaches his side. He sees straight off this is not what one would call a clean break. Horhand's shin bone has ripped its way through its fleshy encasement and is poking its curious head out into a new and exciting world. Oh no, Elmorn says while gagging. This is not good at all. How bad is it? Horhand the mighty asks, afraid to look himself. It's bad. Elmorn takes off his outer shirt and then removes his inner one to use as a bandage. There's too much blood. It's spurting out like a fountain. Some has splattered on his face. The frantic baker has no choice but to rip off the sleeves of his remaining shirt to finish the job. Thankfully, they do. The bleeding has stopped long enough for Elmorn to search for some branches to make his splint with. He thinks about that bone. He dreads having to deal with that pesky bone. Mankar watches as he does, while Elmorn searches for the things he needs. Should we make our move now, master? Julius asks, always the opportunist. Mankar smiles. That was my move. The genius of it all washes over Julius. That was you? He asks in astonishment. What, was it not enough? Mankar cackles his cackle. How about this? Send in a pack of wolves. No, a big smile on Mankar's face. Make it 2.
Horhand points at the fallen horse and runs a finger across his throat. Elmorn nods and regretfully ends its misery. Why did you let us drink all the alcohol? Why did I let us drink all the alcohol? Asks Elmorn, spinning gently in circles. Then an idea strikes. Picking up the fallen axe, he points behind Horhand. What's that? As Horhand turns to look, Elmorn bashes him carefully with the flat of the axe. Ow! What did you do that for? I don't think you should move until I can do something about the bone. Ha! 'Tis but a scratch. I once walked across the plains of Tharn, and you ended up having to be carried to my house in the back of a wagon after that, and spending 3 weeks sweating in my loft. If I didn't have... Hor raises a hand. Maybe a bad example, but my point was, I walked on the leg, so you don't need to knock me out. Just pretend I'm a piece of dough. Elmorn tentatively takes hold of Horhand's ankle and pulls. Horhand's face turns slightly pale beneath his manly tan, but the bone refuses to move. Harder, old friend. No need to treat me like a wizard or some other spineless daub. Taking advantage of Horhand's distraction, Elmorn braces and pulls harder, but his legs are still sore from riding and, instead of resting on a rock as intended, His foot slips into Horhand's lap, catching the end of his mighty weapon a hard blow. However, the bone squelches back beneath the skin. Replacing his inner shirt with his outer shirt, Elmorn is relieved to see the wound is not bleeding heavily. Sticking a shoulder beneath Horhand's arm, they try to stand. Progress is slow, but the splint keeps Horhand's leg safe enough to risk a walking horse. But before Elmorn can even voice the plan to head back to civilization, howls echo from the hills to either side, and lithe grey forms flow into the sight. "Wolves!" cries Horhand, drawing his sword. "I'm not at my best, so I'll take the 10 on the left, and you take the other 20. "This is not a time for jokes, Hor. What do we do?" "I'm not joking. With only one horse, we can't outrun them, so we have to fight." Elmorn looks at the two packs surging across the grass from all around. Raising the axe, he turns to smile at his friend. "Well, it has been exciting, I suppose. Is there something a hero says at this point?" "I usually just scream whatever comes to mind. If I win, there is no one around to criticise my battle cry, and if I don't, then why would I care?" Elmorn shrugs and takes a deep breath. Focusing all his anger, he screams, "Eat the horse and we won't kill you!" The two friends watch in amazement as the wolves flow past them, colliding over the dead body of the horse. Snapping and rolling, they take no interest in anything other than which pack claims the carcass. Hoping the winners will be too injured or sated to pursue, Elmorn leads the remaining horse quietly out of sight. With no sign of pursuit after an hour, they stop to rest. Horhand slaps his friend across the shoulder. "Told you could take care of yourself, but next time try rippling a little too." Elmorn realises he's been striding along without a shirt on. A frown creases his brow. Surely there is more to being a hero than shouting and flashing your muscles. The day seeming much better than when it started, the two friends continue on their way, chatting amiably. Mankar's goblet strikes Julius in the back of the head. Maybe he wasn't heading for the director's job just yet. Thankful at least it was empty, he turns to see his master peering into the grove. "Problem, sir?" "Problem? The wolves were supposed to chase them hard enough that they were too tired to escape when they reached the marsh. Instead, the wolves are not only killing each other, but the baker is starting to develop a spine."
Is this good or bad? Julius asks amid growing confusion. It is neither, Mankar teases. It is simply what it is, nothing more. Julius nods his head, pretending to understand, while Mankar takes out his smoke box. "I thought you were giving up the stuff, Master," Julius asks, hoping he's not out of place. "I was. Now I'm not," Mankar responds, and Julius says no more on the subject. He sits quietly, watching his master light a pipe that fills the room with an aromatic, almost fruity smoke. The fire roars madly and loudly behind them, almost as if enchanted by one of Mankar's spells. Time passes, and they enjoy their moment of rest, until hunger or something like it strikes the not-quite-human Mankar Strongbottom. "Julius, why don't you roast us some goat?" "I feel like being gluttonous for a while," he commands with a smile and a wave of his hand. "What about the game, Master?" Julius asks. "Let them rest a bit. Give them some time to get themselves back together." The villainous Mankar strokes his unnecessarily long chin beard and smiles. "They are going to need it. Now get on with my food before I send you out there to play with them." The servant's face straightens, much like his back, and he's gone without another word. The smell of roasting meat fills the place in under an hour, and dinner is served. Master and servant sitting together for a meal. In other circles, this would be unheard of, a sign of weakness even. But there are no circles in which Mankar Strongbottom can be contained. There are none to judge or view him as weak. He has no equal and is not afraid to show it. "Master," Julius begins with a mouthful of beast, "can I ask why you have chosen this particular mortal to play in your game?" I'll tell you why, my loyal fool. Mankar wipes some food from his mouth with a cloth napkin and continues. It's a matter of personal discomfort for me, if you will. He is the last of a long line of misery for me. He's not the first of this particular thread that I've handled, by far. Do you remember when you first came into my service and we sent that mumbling excuse of a wizard Randolph to Gorfindorp? He chuckles at the thought. I do, master, Julius replies with fondness toward the memory. Silence. Julius waits for his master to continue, but he does not. He wrestles with the urge to press on. Questions nag at his once tiny brain. Why exactly have they chosen this baker to play their game? If it were the other one, Julius would understand. They've done it more than many times, and he's certain they will do it again with that type. He just wants to ask his master, why the baker? But he doesn't. He lets the moment pass, and then the moment is gone. They finish their meal in silence before heading back to the ball of crystal to make their next move. How about you roll me a smoke, brother? The pain is a bit much at the moment. It is strange, actually. I've been hurt much worse than this, but... Horhand pauses to understand himself. This time it hurts more than I am used to. Say no more, Elmorn responds and gets to rolling a few more smokes for their while. Using a twig lit from their small fire, he bursts the cherry of one and passes it to Horhand, before doing the same with one for himself. There are not many words. It has been a trying day, to say the least. For now they sit and smoke and let the quiet soothe them. If only any of life were that easy. Before their smokes are even half finished, a whispering roar fills the forest around them. What Nur's blessed face is that? Elmorn screams with a pitch and voice not far off from the young girls who would beg him for bread in the mornings. I hope it's not what it sounds like, Horhand answers as the color runs from his skin. Well, what does it sound like? Elmorn screams with increasing frustration. As if to answer his question, things come forth from the trees that cannot be logically explained through communication. To say they were shimmering would not be quite true. To say the world rippled around them like water would be an understatement. To try and put them into words would simply be madness. All one could know is the soul-sucking anguish felt in their presence. 1,000,000 eternities spent in the nether void, experienced in an instant, and then that instant is repeated eternally. Elmorn does his best to speak again. What are they? Horhand barely manages to respond. Wraiths.
Wraiths? Whispers Elmorn. I thought you said they were wispy. You said the biggest threat they posed was thinking it was a bit foggy. Another lie, old friend. I get so lonely adventuring, so I didn't want to put you off the idea completely. I was planning to let you see the fun side before we started robbing ancient wraith-filled tombs. I never expected to find them here. Elmorn starts to reach for the axe from his pack as the wraiths drift slowly closer to the fire. Somehow, even without eyes, he feels them focus on him. No! Hisses Horhand. Stay still. They usually react only to motion. Usually? Mankar, happening to glance into the glass ball while reaching for another smoke, does not notice as the box tumbles from his fingers. What's wrong, master? Asks Julius, trying to scoop up the spilt smokes and the box at the same time, and failing. There are wraiths in the forest. Wraiths? The back of Julius's head looks shifty. The front probably does too, but Mankar cannot see that from where he is sitting. How unusual! Unusual? It could be catastrophic. What's so important about that tile? Why aren't you bringing me a drink? Julius, do you know something? I thought it might look bad if he was unarmed. If who was? Julius launches into a long explanation with much repetition of how he didn't want it to be obvious they were supposed to defeat the goblin easily, so he needed to find a weapon, and how there weren't any just lying there, so he borrowed the rusty axe from over the fireplace in the basement. "The rusty axe in the basement?" shouts Mankar. "Do you mean the axe of corruption that I took from the Wraith Prince of Boria when I slew him? The same axe of corruption that every wraith in the land seeks, and that I was only unable to find due to the precautions I put in place? Julius, there are days I regret transforming a perfectly good rat into you." Meanwhile, in the clearing, the two friends have been attempting to discuss a plan without moving their lips. It is not going well. "How did you eat them?" "Eat them? They're not ill. You can't eat them." "Not eat them? Eat them." Horhand notices the wraiths don't seem to be focused on them. Instead, they are flowing over and around each other in a writhing ball of madness over the packs. He risks not sounding like a wooden puppet for a moment. "Actually, it didn't. They had me, but Mankar Strongbottom killed their prince. I managed to escape while they were chasing him." Elmorn, his hope that his friend was just biding his time crushed, collapses to the ground. As the seconds pass, he realizes there is no icy touch of madness, no crushing grasp of absence. Turning his head slowly, he realizes none of the wraiths has reacted. Ready to freeze at every moment, he slowly pushes himself up to a sitting position, then crab walks away from the fire. The wraiths continue to circle the packs. Horhand, shamed by his admission and by his friend's bravery, drags himself away too, broken leg trailing behind him. A sudden obstacle and a panicked Wicker reveal he has backed into their horse. Not wishing to waste time on the knot, he pulls the tetherscape from the ground with a single heave of one mighty arm. But, unbalanced by his injury, he loses his grip and the horse bolts into the woods. A marrow-chilling scream echoes from the clearing, and the friends jerk to see one of the wraiths falling from the rising mast in tatters. Faster and faster screams erupt and tatters fly, until a single wraith is left. It sinks drunkenly to the ground before rocketing into the skies. The friends make their way into the clearing to find their belongings covered in a layer of rotting ectoplasm. Of the axe, there is no sign. "Well," says Horhand, "it looks like we are walking. If we start now, we can be home in less than a week." "Home?" replies Elmorn, using Horhand's best wenching shirt to clean off his pack. "We're almost at the marsh. We would be no more manly than a wizard if we gave up now."
Hours pass without event. Finally, they get some of the rest they needed. Neither assumes this calm will last long. Both fully expect the storm that is to come. They decide to press on before the storm has a chance to catch up with them. "For what I wouldn't do for one of your loaves right now, Elmorn," Horhand says, thinking of the growing hunger in his belly. "Perhaps once we get through the marches and reach the city, we can try some of the locals' bread." Elmorn now thinks of food himself. "I've brought my savings with me. All of it. Unfortunately, it's not something I'm proud to tout." "What do you mean?" Horhand asks, hobbling along. "After a life of work, and we will be lucky to make a few weeks before we starve." Elmorn's embarrassment is evident. "I suppose this is another of those moments where I've not been exactly forthright with you." Horhand's brow has been wearing the stains of shame an awful lot lately. "I fear asking you to elaborate," Elmorn says, and he means it. "I didn't steal the headman's goat for but the joy of it. That was a bonus." The pain in Horhand's leg is almost unbearable as they make their way along. He wonders how long until they are forced to have another break. "Oh, brother, what is it now? What have you gotten us into, Horhand Swordhand? Was I that wrong about which of us was holding the other back?" A sweat breaks out on Elmorn's underchin. He always perspires in the most peculiar of places when nervous. "There's plenty of gold to be had beyond those marshes. Eating will be the least of our worries. If we get there, that is. Horhand almost loses his footing, but a stiff fist to the armpit from Elmorn straightens him out. What the sloth-loving saint are you talking about? You are making no sense, man. The baker is losing his biscuits. In the name of Ner, just spit it out already, or I will have no other choice but to punch you in the troublemaker, he says, referring to the dangling bits between Horhand's legs. You couldn't stand life in Gorfindorp, nor could I. The squalor is far too much to bear, Horhand says. It's not that bad, Elmorn argues. Don't lie to yourself, brother. You hated it there as much as I did. And you were right in what you said earlier. I do want something more. I know you do too, but I knew I couldn't get you to just up and leave otherwise. There is no shame in Horhand's words this time. You had no right to make such a choice for me, Elmorn screams, enraged. I had no other choice, Horhand throws back. We needed out and you weren't going to do it willingly. So you forced me to give up everything and live in an even worse world of uncertainty and destitution? Who knows if I'll ever bake again? Elmorn feels like punching his friend in the unmentionables even more than before. That's what I'm trying to tell you. There's gold for us on the other side of this marsh. More gold than we can ever spend. All we have to do is take it. Horhand reveals to little fanfare from Elmorn. Are you talking about robbery? Now you expect me to be a thief? Elmorn picks up his walking speed, creating a distance between himself and Horhand. It's not stealing if you take it from bandits, Horhand shouts, struggling to catch up. Elmorn stops in his tracks. What kind of bandits have more gold than we can ever spend, you fool? That's like the poor robbing the poor. Not if you're robbing the bandit king. Horhand stops because the pain in his leg is too much. You're insane, Elmorn screams in astonishment, still somewhat resembling a young girl. Mankar watches them argue from his clouded ball of crystal. He takes the time to consider all that has recently transpired. With the wraiths once again in possession of their fabled axe, there was no telling how long before all-out chaos engulfed the land. He's a little more than disappointed with Julius. These problems won't be of much consequence to them other than the inconvenience of finding a new world to torment, but Mankar had grown quite fond of this one. He was hoping to see it evolve and flourish. He would have waited until the moment these people reached their fullest potentials, and he would have crushed them in one fell swoop. Then he could have moved on with a feeling of accomplishment. Now, it's almost like a defeat. If we must leave the world, then the baker's end must come sooner than planned, Mankar announces while striding across the room gathering things. Why is this man so important to you, Master? Julius finally asks the question he dared not before. He sees no other avenue. The feeling of inclusion is leaving him and he doesn't like it. It was a long time ago, too many moons to count. I met a woman of ill business in a brothel north of here. She had a child, my child. Mankar lets his servant enjoy the bone thrown to him before continuing. This baker is the last of that child's bloodline, of my bloodline. Does this mean he will be leaving this world with us? Julius asks. Is that what this was all really about? No, I'm going to kill him. I was always going to kill him. The thought of that vagrant prostitute having bore my seed, it's enough to make the skin crawl, I tell you, my Julius. The master of most things reaches out and strokes Julius's fuzzy head, as he always does when he wants a quick fix of pleasure. So what will it be then, master? Julius asks, uncertain as usual with the way he feels about the head stroking. Are you going to send the Hellions of Upper Umpton? Or perhaps the butcher of Blakely Place? It would be poetic to have the butcher slaughter the baker, don't you think? In other times I'd rather enjoy those suggestions, but now is not the time to leave this up to others. Mankar stops stroking Julius and gives his own chin beard an unusual tug. What are you saying, master? Julius asks, fearing the answer he already knows. We are going to the marshes. going to have to kill him myself before we leave this world to the wraiths for good.
Elmorn stands, staring across the marshes. Without horses it might take days, even weeks, to cross them. Days of tedious sameness, the only difference being not even his dreams, but whether he dreamed at all. The metaphor was as sharp as a witch's tongue. He turned to his contrite companion. Might that slight smudge in the mist be the edge of Gallows' drop? Horhand, grown used to Elmorn's bitter silence, nearly drops his crutch in shock. It might be. It is at least something to aim for. The two adventurers resettle their packs and squelch from hummock to hummock, hoping they are still following the map, and that the map is not a fraud. After an hour of stopping for Horhand to catch up, Elmorn further relents and takes his pack too. With their supplies as empty as a sorcerer's heart, he barely notices the second weight. With the weight gone from his shoulders, Horhand regains his upright stance, if not his proud stride. After a moment he points into the mist. Is there a light to the west? Elmorn turns to look. After a moment he is sure there is a bright light ahead, but then the mist swirls and it is gone. However, something is out there. As he watches, two figures resolve from the murk, one walking proudly straight towards them as if over a meadow, the other, shorter figure, scampering and hopping erratically through the water. "By Neria!" shouts Horhand, "Mankar Strongbottom, more evil than 10 sorcerers, and more perverse." "Looking a little limp, Horhand," calls back Mankar jestingly. The wind gusts, clearing the mist and giving Elmorn his first real sight of Mankar. The sight is everything he expected of the face of evil, but something niggles him. Brain aching with effort, he struggles to resolve a mixture of fear and familiarity. Then a wisp of mist obscures Mankar's chin, and he realises that. With the chin beard obscured, it is like looking in the mirror. "Ho! He? "Aye," mutters his friend, "I see it. Promise me you will never grow a beard." "I do not think that will be a problem," mocks Mankar, "for you will both be dead before the morn. Dead like all my sons. For my son you are, Elmorn. How multiply evil to kill you now. Not only do I slaughter my own kin, but your dreams of finding family. But you will not be alone long. The wraiths shall soon devour this world. Only I shall escape. Only I shall survive." Mankar strokes his beard dramatically and grins a cold grin. Filled with joy at explaining his own evil, Mankar does not notice Julius peering up at him with puzzled eyes. "You, child of 2 wizards!" Horhand leaps at Mankar, knocking him over. In his arrogance, Mankar has only made his boots repel the marsh, and the two of them fall into the water. Elmorn quickly dives after them. Mankar struggles. His strength is great enough to cast Horhand away like a witch's ward, but Elmond is, if not the equal of his father's son. The two friends hold him down. "Julius!" sputters Mankar, his neck like a mighty oak as he forces his head clear of the water. "Kill Elmorn!" "Do not listen to him," shouts Elmorn. "He plans to leave you to die." "Remember the shared meals, friend Julius." Mankar's voice, like that of all magic users, turns easily to persuasion, and even the most conflicted man might answer to such words. But mighty beyond measure in so many areas, there is one area that Mankar is not his son's better, and Julius is not a man, but a transformed rat. With the inadvertent command of the last Beath Lord of Hathcorda deafening him to Mankar's words, Julius does not hear the denials. Believing his master does not care to deny them, he leaps onto Mankar's head. Mankar has defeated armies before, and what he could not defeat, he escaped by magic. But arms pinned and mouth beneath muddy water, Mankar can perform neither the mystical gestures nor the incantations that would free him in an instant. Even he cannot live indefinitely without air, and so he drowns. Covered in slime and shivering from the cold, the two friends, and Julius, turn their backs on Mankar's body and begin the long trudge to dry land. Was it worth it, Hor? The wraiths will kill us all anyway. Surviving is always worth it, old friend. I saw Mankar defeat the wraiths. Maybe his son can do the same.
Who do you think won the battle? Vote for a winner in the comments below.